I think we're going to be in the voice chat today. I'm not positive about that yet. But until I know for sure, I'm going to get set up. Twitter is being unpredictable, undependable today. So actually, I should fire up Twitter and see if we're actually on Twitter, like would be normal. So let me do that. Bear with me here. Ooh, looks like we're live. Oh, I'm live on video. Let me pull up Twitter. Keeping an eye on messages. Okay, hold on. All right, we got to do a search. There we go. Funky chicken. Yeah. Yeah, this is very unusual. Huh. Showing posts from 3 days ago, but not the recent ones. All right, let me get my eyes on what's going on here. We're thinking Twitter's not gonna. If you're just jumping in, we're thinking Twitter's not gonna work today, and then we're gonna do a voice chat instead. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. I don't see a voice chat going yet. No messages. Okay. Guys, I'm just waiting to hear from Zen for what's going to happen today because Twitter is acting up. It might work on Twitter, it might not. And I'm thinking it's not going to. Because I can see the space on my computer, but I'm trying to find it on my phone. Here it is. Here it is. Come on now. Okay. It just hasn't started yet. So, just you and me. Oh, guys. Technical difficulties. Morning, Dallas. I sent you a message on Telegram this morning. Morning, Thomas. Twitter not working for me. Good afternoon, aliens. David. Believe in yourself. There have been issues with X this morning. Yeah, like, what was happening? It wasn't even pulling up an account, like the main account. But my stream is live there on X right now. Okay, I got a message. Hold on. Okay, we got a new. I got a new link. It's a new space. Maybe it's. Hold on. Yep, pTGC. Okay. He started a new space. Come on, baby. Ah, there we go. Start listening. Request to speak. We get to listen to music. Weird music. Let me repost this. Good morning. Doing good. Turn the volume up. Yeah, it was way down. Have you posted this around?
I threw it in the TG.
Okay, I'll get my YouTube link in there.
Yeah, something was going on with Twitter this morning. I couldn't even find the scheduled space, so I had to open this one up.
Yeah, I couldn't pull up the main account on this morning at all.
Yeah, I heard there was like a big fire at some data center or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Is it glitching for just me? It's doing all kinds of weird stuff with the account.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely glitching, acting weird. It's something with Twitter though. They've made an announcement about some big fire or something, and we'll see how it goes. If it's acting buggy and for some reason like shuts us down or something, maybe we'll just move it to the VC for the rest of the day. But I wanted to give it a shot on here.
Sure.
Let me just see if I can get the link, because I was trying to get the link to retweet it out, and it wasn't even popping up yet.
It's in the Telegram.
Got you. Thank you.
You bet. How are you doing today, Zen?
Did you get a free t-shirt, Banana?
I didn't. No.
I think it's still going on if you want one.
Okay.
The guy said he would do 50 for us, but 50 went in a matter of like 30 minutes. So he said he'd keep it up for a little bit longer. He sent me a message this morning saying it was going to end sometime this morning. How many did he say? 129 sitting so far. T-shirts claimed.
Okay, so are people able to buy just one at a time or more than one?
You're only allowed one t-shirt. I'm sure you can make probably different emails or something like that, or
yeah,
maybe I don't know
how
to get around it, but I'm sure there's easy ways around it. But I don't think anyone probably try to get 50 t-shirts.
No.
There is a cost, right? So there's the shipping and handling on his end that you have to pay. So the kind of cool thing about that is, really, it's technically, I guess, a $10 t-shirt because you have to pay the shipping to get it. But that means the people who just claimed their free t-shirt like actually really wanted it, right? And I thought that was pretty cool. So we should have 120 people rocking some pTGC t-shirts going in the summer.
Nice. Well, that's cool.
For everyone listening too, if you didn't get it and you want it, it's still going on, I'm pretty sure. Again, he's doing it for free, but you do have to pay the shipping and handling on that website. So.
And who's doing that, Zen?
The Pulsican store. I think it's one of the larger Pulse Chain merch stores. He started listing pTGC clothes or t-shirts, some hats and stuff like that. And he's doing this promotion for us right now. I think he also does some promotions for Pulse Chain as well. I think he's giving away a bunch of just general Hex and Pulse Chain t-shirts.
Cool. That's real nice. David got his, cost him 10 pounds for delivery. I'm trying to find out what 10 pounds converts to in dollars.
Yeah, I don't know either. When I was looking at it, it was $10. So it's maybe something similar.
$14.50.
Yeah. probably going out of the country is a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably cheaper for United States people, but I guess that's not that bad considering it's probably like a United States-based shipping company having to send it overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate the support though. I'm super glad to see pTGC logos all over the world. I think the guy told me it was like 30 different countries or something like that.
Had ordered from? That he's shipping to?
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. That's amazing. Yeah, we are all over the Grays. The Grays are, crypto people are all over the world.
Yeah, it's a unique business in that way, right? Like it's one of the only businesses that you technically have the whole world to tap into. And technically the whole world can afford it, right? Like with a lot of products, some countries, obviously have a little bit more value, and some of the more poorer countries, they can't afford some of like the goods that maybe like our country would offer. But with crypto, it's all like decimal based. So, someone here technically might be able to afford $5,000 of pTGC, but their lifestyle and living and what they need from that pTGC is obviously like possibly 20 times higher than someone in a different country, to where maybe they only get to come in with $100, but if the lifestyle and cost of living is that much cheaper out there, they still actually get to get involved with the product. Probably the biggest fee is just the process of getting from whatever their fiat is into Pulse Chain. But once they're here, it's really like, it's a very unique thing, blockchain, in that way that literally anyone in the world can use it, and they get to just adjust their cost of living and what they can afford with their specific portfolio. But kind of the gains and the X's and the APY still equals out evenly. It's just, they're kind of probably possibly dealing with less, or a more wealthy country with a little bit more. But the cost of living is more in those countries anyways, so it kind of all evens out to an extent.
Yeah.
Really, in the poorer countries, it's actually like a huge savior for them, because the inflation to their currency and everything like that is just like even worse than, we're complaining here. It's so much worse in other places, and crypto really gives them a way to hedge themselves against what's going on.
Oh, yeah. I always get excited when I hear somebody in another country, like, not to pick on a continent, but, well, let's just not do that then. When I hear of a country, and by the way, I'm a Generation X, and the way we were raised, everybody outside the United States is poor. And that's just not the case. So let's just make that clear. That's not where I'm coming from. But there are a lot of like poverty-stricken places in a lot of countries, even in the United States, all right? But whenever I hear somebody from another country that's in crypto, I kind of get a little excited, because I do like to shatter that myth too of everything outside the United States being a train wreck, because it's really not.
Yeah, the one I kind of always think about, and I don't know the exact numbers, and the reason I know a little bit about it, not because I'm a well-traveled person, but my wife's grandparents are from Argentina, and they were telling me stories about when there was an extreme inflation when they were like teenagers or kids in Argentina.
Okay.
To where I think in like a matter of a year, the inflation was like multiple X's, not even percentages.
Yeah.
Could you imagine, like within a year period, inflation being up not 10%, 20%, but like 300%?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a big deal. I mean, it used to be.
The exact numbers. I'm just saying, like that stuff is real and it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Curves fail.
Oh, there's situations, man, where you go into hyperinflationary, scenarios, and the eggs are twice as much yesterday as they were the day before.
Yeah.
Like over and over and over again. Like they're just to the point where they can't even buy anything. It's nuts.
Yeah, it happens. Thankfully, it doesn't happen here in the States, or hasn't happened yet. But yeah, they say if you accidentally drove off the road in I want to say it was China, if you drove into a crowd of people, you run into a millionaire. Didn't used to be that way, but it is now. So yeah, man, those Asian countries, like my dad was he served in Vietnam, and he's familiar with what's that city over there in Thailand. It escapes me now. But this girl from Thailand, she's an exchange student, painted my dad a picture of this city, and it had a skyline, man, like skyscrapers. And he says, "That's not what it looked like when I was there in 1970." Yeah, they've come a long way, a lot of those countries. So the point of that is that don't discount people that live in wherever, because they might have money that they can put into the graves. Yeah. Well, we didn't have any news this week except for Suey. And I realize now that, we're not going to have a newsworthy event in Pulse Chain every week. Now that the SEC case is pretty much done. And that's, I think, where a lot of the news was coming from. So is it quiet over here? Well, from my perspective, it is. But we just got to be patient. I think you said on Spaces last week, Zen, that Richard Hart, he has a way of timing things, and we just got to kind of trust that he's timing whatever he's going to do for Pulse Chain. Bangkok. Thank you, Lemonade. It was Bangkok. That's right.
Yeah, I obviously don't think we would be here on Pulse Chain, or pTGC would have been built on Pulse Chain if I didn't have trust in Richard's judgment as far as the markets go.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely one of the best people at judging the markets. I think he knows more times 10 than what the average person knows about the markets. And I do feel very, very thankful to be on a blockchain that I do feel like the founder of the blockchain takes all those things into consideration when he's making what I believe his moves for the best interest of his chain and his glory. If in the future we're not super happy about it, well, that's just kind of part of it, right? Like in tons of other blockchains, you see Richard right now not happy with all the moves that Vitalik has made. Like that just kind of comes with it. But I do feel pretty confident in our founder, and I think he's a pretty damn smart guy. Obviously, pretty much everything I've learned in this industry has been by watching him and picking up little things here or there. But I do think he is waiting for a specific moment in the market. And when all those things line up, that's probably when it's a somewhat of a go time for him. And there's no rush for him until that time, right? Like in the meantime, it's just seeing, who believes in him and who doesn't. And when the market comes to him, when the current switches in the direction that he's looking for to get to the destination he's looking for, it's going to make it that much easier for him to swim there. So I feel confident. I think a lot of people had time horizons, and obviously the market didn't match up with their time horizons, which becomes difficult and boring. But when you look at what we have, the chain, the security, the fundamentals, the foundation, we're in a really good spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as long as pTGC and UFO keep moving up against Pulse Chain, it just gets even better and better. That X multiplier keeps improving. The longer that Pulse Chain stays down.
The longer Pulse Chain stays down, it just gives us that much more opportunity to get rid of supply at the bottom, get LP with more RH tickers or other blue chips on the chain. Like, I think we talked about this in the VC. The blessing that this extended bear market was, or even like just the bear market on Pulse Chain, I know like Bitcoin's kind of been up and stuff like that. So more, let's say, the bear market on Pulse Chain, because it's been extended, that's actually created a very, very unique opportunity for the grays that I think a lot of people aren't giving a lot of credit to, right? Like, I do think we are a lot stronger from this extended bear market than if we just kind of ran up when we all expected or hoped it did. And is that seen on the chart right now? Absolutely not. But when I think that's going to be seen on the chart is when that move actually comes. I think it's going to make it to where the growth that we get at that moment is so much more sustainable than if we ran, let's say, that first mega pump up that we did and then kind of retraced down. Let's say it never retraced down. Let's say it like created a bull run here on Pulse Chain and the markets and it kind of blew off top. Well, I think that pump would have been a lot more unsustainable and there would have been a larger retracement than what we have right now. I think right now we have so much more distributed supply at these lows, a lot more bought and burnt supply at these lows. Tokens have went from strong hands to strong hands to weak hands to strong hands. Like, the supply has been washed around a little bit. People have gotten in at a bunch of different levels, and we've been able to also increase our liquidity. So
yeah, a lot. I mean, by buying RH tickers, at sub 10th of a penny hex, buying that hex for cheap and pairing it with pTGC, and then hex goes to 50 cents or $1 this cycle. Yeah, I mean, that's going to talk, you know what I mean? And then we didn't just buy hex on discount, but everything else.
Yeah, the preparation that we've been able to do, I think is unseen at the moment. But like, when you look at the data, when you look at the facts, when you look at the LP, when you look at the bought and burnt supply, all those metrics are looking extremely well. And I think very, very rapidly they will start to show. And people who are within the pTGC ecosystem will obviously be like, I assumed, or I somewhat knew that this was going to happen metric-wise. Like, we've been studying this stuff and like making educated guesses over and over again. Pretty much every single educated guess on the metrics of pTGC have been 100% true. Pretty much the only thing we've gotten a little bit wrong is just when the market was going to move up. And again, us being wrong was kind of a blessing, because it's given our machine the ability to become very strong at this level and create a very strong foundation. So when it is time to move up, since our foundation is so much bigger, it makes it so our building that we're building here, the growth that we're going to get can be that much higher with sustainability.
Right. And another thing that we're benefiting from the chain not having run yet is we're able to get our marketing together more. So, I mean, with the spaces, the voice chats, figuring out how to, market on Twitter and all that stuff, that is all important stuff to have in place before retail comes.
My favorite saying about that is, smooth seas don't make good sailors. So I think, the harsher environment that we've been pretty much forged within on Pulse Chain, right? The fact that it's been pretty much going down, even though that's not what we expected out of the chain, but that's what we're given. Those rough seas have forged a very, very well group of sailors, right? We've pretty much seen everything you can throw at us, and we know how to get through these storms, and we know what works. So when good times come ahead, it's kind of a walk in the park, and we know exactly what to do. We know our roles. We know how to market the machine. A lot of people don't have that, right? A lot of people are built on a chain with people there already. They're not building the city from the ground up when no one's even in the city. They don't have a battle-tested crew that's been working together for a year and a half. They don't have the burnt liquidity. Like, so many features within this protocol are completely overlooked. But I'm definitely very thankful that we've been through, I wouldn't say hard times, like we could be on Sui chain, but definitely difficult times, which make our machine so strong and our community strong as well.
You know what, Zen? I'll tell you something, man. When you talk about difficult times, sure. Not if you've been in pTGC. Because if I was in Bitcoin and I took a position at the 300-week moving average at 16,000 at the bottom of Bitcoin and put in 10 grand, well, okay, I've like 4 or 5x my money, whatever. If I did it with ETH at 1,700, okay, it's at 2,500. If I did it at the, if I did it with pTGC, you've made millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, up to millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to keep it in perspective. Like, yeah, Pulse Chain's doing what it's doing for a number of different reasons. It's the market, right? It's the market. But if you've been in this asset and just holding the asset and staking and earning, like when I look back at the amount of pTGC I've earned on my UI when I connect to the dApp, and I see I bought this much principal, the principal's worth this now, and it's like, holy shit. And then the amount of APY that I've earned and what that amount is worth, like, you're not getting that with Bitcoin. You're not getting that with ETH. You got to do all these crazy, you got to become a miner. You got to buy all these rigs. You got to do all these different things. You haven't seen anywhere near the amount of appreciation on the asset, let alone the yield and the appreciation on the yield. So, yes, Pulse Chain has been doing what it's doing. But if you've been with the Grays, you've absolutely just smashed it, even at the current levels.
Mm-hmm.
So it's having the proper perspective.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That's one of the reasons I'm just super excited for, the environment that we're built on becoming a lot more smoother, because we're still getting to our destinations, right? In that analogy of a smooth sea versus, a stormy sea. What we're built on is the stormy sea, but our battle-tested ship, our token, our code, and our community, we're not letting the stormy water stop us from getting to the destination that we see where we want to go. We're still getting there. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Sometimes, we get through a couple little rough patches, but we're still hitting all these goals that we're setting for ourselves. And then we just set the next milestone and we start working towards that direction. Smooth seas or stormy seas. Obviously, in this event, once the seas become smooth, it's just going to become that much easier for our system. We don't even need it to happen, though. We'll keep sailing through tough seas if that's what it takes. And I agree 100%. Anyone who's been in this protocol and has believed in this protocol has possibly already started to change their life. And if not, they have a good position to change their life in the future as well. Because there is only so many tickets on this ship. There's only so many pTGC tokens. It's decreasing every single day. To get a decent sized position, discounts right now is the opportunity you should be looking for, because very, very quickly when markets go back up, when Pulse Chain goes back up, when pTGC goes back up, these life-changing opportunities can start to become smaller and smaller and smaller until you have to spend a crazy amount of money to get a decent amount of pTGC.
Well, like we just burned 42 million tokens last night. The protocol did. That's $16,200 worth of Pulse Chain pushed into the pools. That 42 million pTGC tokens are now gone. Each one of them represents a miner, a mining rig, if you will.
Yep.
Those miners are all destroyed. They can never mine new tokens. And that amount of value at the previous all-time high was $55,000. It was a $55,000 position worth of basically mining rigs. That there's no overhead, there's no electricity costs, there's no maintenance fees, there's no paying a programmer or a dev to maintain the network and to do all the stuff that Bitcoiners have to do. They want to mine their token, right? Security's just as good, if not as good as Ethereum. So that's the way I'm looking at it at this point, Ted. Like, when you compare it technically, technology-wise, to the other things, it's just a superior product. It's a superior cryptocurrency. You know, I mean, we just burned the equivalent of a $55,000 position last night at the previous all-time high, and that means that all of those miners are gone. And I think like looking at each token like a miner is a very cool way of looking at pTGC moving forward. Because if you actually go into a mining rig, like for Bitcoin, a lot of people have never gone and have never seen an actual facility that mines Bitcoin, and the amount of energy and money and uptake and technology and people you got to pay to do it, run it, all that. They don't really have an appreciation for what it takes to mine something that's a very rare commodity from a proof of work standpoint, like the amount of energy that it takes, right? But the fact that pTGC is able to do this, and it's almost like you're going into a mining rig facility for Bitcoin and just putting a bomb in there and just blowing it up. You know, it's kind of funny in that way. You're just blowing up mining rig facilities every day.
pTGC is also deflationary miners versus Bitcoin, for example, is inflationary. Although it'd be, you know, lowering inflation every 4 years, it's still inflationary, putting new tokens into the supply versus pTGC is not. You're getting those mining rewards based off of volume after tokens have already been burned to net to LPs and everything else.
100%.
Well, and Nick, real quick, the miners are inflationary too, right? The companies that make those miners, the people are creating more miners for you to compete against for a decreasing amount of tokens, but your competition will ever increase, even if you just hold the amount of miners that you already had. There's just going to be more miners coming out every single day, pretty much. pTGC, it's always less. I thought that was what you were getting at.
Yeah, it's a good lesson too for those of you who don't know. You know, I started mining in 2016, and you know, I was able to mine with my graphics card on my gaming computer. Now, it was a good gaming computer, but I was able to mine with that. Now you need thousands of dollars worth of ASICs to even compete on Bitcoin. Ethereum is no longer proof of work, and you need really GPU mining rigs even to compete in some of these lower end proof of work altcoins too, where you have 12, 15, 16 graphics cards all paired together in a mining rig. So, you know, the difficulty is ever increasing, technology is ever evolving, and it costs you more and more money to compete to continue to mine those assets. Versus pTGC, you know, you get your position, you hold it, you get your reflection rewards. And every time the protocol burns tokens, like we just saw last night, that's more miners, less competition out the door. And while you're earning those rewards, it's nice to know that they're not inflation; they're just deflationary tokens based on the token economics.
Yeah, and my yield, when you see a batch of tokens like that get burned out of existence, that means that those tokens can never take yield away from me ever again. So the yield only can now go toward the existing tokens. You know, so as long as you're holding your miners, you're not relinquishing them over time, your yield, your percentage of the yield pool just keeps going up. And that's why pTGC is literally the game of the last man standing. Imagine one day, man, when there's only a certain amount of pTGC left, whoever knows what, you know, whatever the percentage would be, you know, and you really see it in the KPIs, Nick. Like, let's say, for example, like you double the amount of burn that there is now. Let's say we get through this cycle, we go into the bear market, everything bottoms at whatever the price bottoms at. Bitcoin bottoms at whatever, ETH bottoms, Pulse bottom, whatever the hell the next bottom is. It's burning the shit out of the tokens at that point, you know, out of low. And then we go into the next run, right? I would imagine that the next cycle after this coming bear market, whenever it happens, that's going to be very interesting to see the amount of earned coins and how many miners have actually been taken offline, because those KPIs are going to be interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, essentially, regardless of what the general market's doing, up, down, left, right, whatever, there's still going to be volume generation on pTGC as long as the protocol's working, which means inevitably LPs are getting fatter, tokens are getting burned, reflection rewards continue to get paid. So, you know, this first cycle, let's get through this first. I think it's going to be pretty exciting, $1 billion market cap and beyond for pTGC for sure. But yeah, beyond that, let's, 4 years from now when the next cycle's starting, I think the supply is going to be a lot smaller and the liquidity pools are going to be a lot fatter.
I think $1 billion market cap for pTGC, Nick, would mean that Pulse Chain was a complete flop this cycle.
Yeah, that would probably be Pulse Chain just doing, 10x stack price or something, which would be like a 25x from here. And pTGC gets beyond $1 billion in my estimation. But, I always like to look at these things in conservative lights. And I know, the moon math and stuff gets some people excited, but I'm kind of a step-by-step guy. I like the token economics, and I think me saying, hey, we're going to do 4x the previous all-time high, which is still another, 4x away, I think is a good start, would change a lot of lives. And, we'll keep monitoring and updating the numbers as we move forward. But I feel you. I mean, we saw 350 million pTGC with the underlying Pulse Chain going down and to the right, essentially. Ethereum going to $1,600, and really the only thing moving has been Bitcoin. So what happens when Bitcoin dominance falls off, Ethereum catches a bid, gets above 5,000, the SAC wallet's in the green on that trade, and Pulse Chain's doing, 5x, 10x, 20x, 30x the SAC rate. Well, pTGC could be billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, and beyond.
Yeah, real quick, Nick, because you're kind of talking about, how you were mining Bitcoin back in the day with your gaming computers. Imagine being in a situation where big industries and the competition couldn't price out your gaming computer. At that time, I don't know how many people were mining with their gaming computers. For an example, let's just say it was 10,000 or 100,000 people. Maybe these numbers because you're actually in it. But imagine if it wasn't a scenario where they could just make them faster and faster and faster and technically take the yield from you, one of the early guys. And you're in a situation where if you were an early guy, and as long as you believed in the protocol and weren't willing to sell that gaming computer, your gaming computer would produce more and more and more percentage-wise of the yield of that asset every single day for the rest of your life.
And that's the opportunity that pTGC is offering, and that's why I fell in love with the token economics and why it's doing as well as it is. It kind of levels the playing fields for a lot of individuals and allows you to get the deal based on the timing relative to market cap, of course. Obviously, you can't get as good of a deal now as somebody who got in a million or 2 million as far as passive income share. But if you buy the tokens, you're going to get your prorated share of the network. And that percentage is growing over time, even if you don't have the capital to buy more, just because we are seeing the burning of tokens and the reduction of supply. So, it's a brilliant system. It's working, and it's really better for the little guy. Bitcoin over the years, like you said, it costs more and more money to compete in the mining sector. You got public companies on board. You got institutions coming in play. It's still the crypto for the people. It's still got the first mover advantage. But the ability for the average Joe to get involved in Bitcoin now, whether it's buying tokens, whether mining tokens, whether creating a Bitcoin business, it's becoming a far-fetched dream, in my opinion. And you got to look to new technology and new opportunities, and pTGC is one of those.
Well, and even in your example, right, Nick, like you weren't mining the first 2 years Bitcoin came out. Like you were a little bit after that. And you're still in a great opportunity mining Bitcoin from your computer. The problem is the evolution of Bitcoin. People obviously saw value in mining it, and it just started to become more difficult and more difficult, even if you never sold that miner, that computer, the increasing of competition eventually just priced you out. And essentially, if you're willing to not give up that miner, you'll never be priced out, and you'll actually keep increasing your mining rewards infinitely over time. right? But the price of that miner, those pTGC tokens, might hit numbers that you are willing to sell it at, but that's your own decision, right? In the Bitcoin scenario, you didn't even get to sell it. I'm sure it just kind of just became obsolete due to the, the competition just increasing rapidly.
Yeah, essentially it went from not being able to mine Bitcoin with your computer anymore, and then you could mine Ethereum. Then it got to the point where Ethereum difficulty got too high, so you started mining other altcoins. Then it got to the point where you had to upgrade U miners, and now it's it's ASIC miners, and only the big dogs with millions of dollars can create facilities to really be competitive and make real profits with Bitcoin mining.
Yeah. And then on the other thing, I ran a few of the numbers for Mando, like really what the deflationary supply could equal in the future. Obviously, we don't know what the future holds on Pulse-Chain, but if you take just the number of what we burned in the last 24 hours, roughly 40 million pTGC, and you multiply that by 4 years, right? And that, let's say that's, us blowing off top this cycle and then retracing and then creating a floor and then moving our way back up. If you kind of believe that the cycles exist, 4 years from now, we could be sitting at another 58 billion pTGC bought and burned, which ultimately is pretty much another 20% of the supply by next cycle, which would put us around 30% of the supply bought and burned.
That's why I said sometimes, man, I know you're going to like me saying this, but sometimes, man, I almost wish that it would go down one more time, bro. Like one more hardcore down, so I could just buy a shitload more, and then it would just sit down there, just the burn rate would just be much higher, one more time. But I know nobody wants that to happen, so.
Yeah, I think, I think the next big move down will probably be after a massive move up. What I predict would be like the next target shift up. It's going to obviously get us what Nick was kind of saying, possibly in the billions, 2 billions, 3 billions, 4 billions. People are going to be in profit. Like, we have to be realistic. They're going to take profits. There's going to probably be a good retracement there, where I think that will be an amazing opportunity for the new people coming into Pulse-Chain. Because in that event of us doing another 10, 20, 30x from here, 50x, 100x, who knows, right? We don't know how successful, how many tricks Richard has. But if those events happen, there's going to be a flood of people coming into Pulse-Chain, and they'll probably be buying all of that range of pTGC, giving, the people that are here right now when no one's here, possibility to take profits or not take profits, get great APY and see their position increase drastically, making the APY better. But of course, when markets shift, there will be a big retracement. Do I think, personally, if you ask, like, this is non-financial advice, do I think that's going to retrace to lower than here? Absolutely not. I actually think it's going to be multiple X's higher than here, because every single time we've seen this on pTGC, that's what's happened. Every single time we get that huge price increase, which has happened like 3 times now, it never comes back to these levels. It actually lands like 10x higher than these levels.
Well, yeah, but you add a bunch of holders, so you take more off the market, you burn more off the market. The price floor keeps landing higher for the underlying assets plus the asset of pTGC. So that's just literally what we've seen in 20 months.
Yeah.
There's no reason to go against the math.
Yeah, it's those 3 things, right? Buying and burning tokens, increasing of holders and holders holding a portion of their portfolio long term, and the increase, which we actually haven't even seen this last one, the increasing price of hitting a higher floor on the connected assets that we're bonded to. We've actually been getting lower lows on the connected assets. So if we actually start hitting higher highs, that's also going to add to the hiring of the floor. So what that kind of creates is, whenever that happens, right, I believe that possibly was a month ago, possibly the lowest point on pTGC forever, right? That possibly could be just the lowest point, the lowest price that you're going to even get for the rest of the existence of pTGC. Technically right now could be, if Pulse-Chain starts to move starting today, today could literally be your lowest price of pTGC that you could ever get. Obviously, markets could shift down and you could get lower prices. But if the market shift up right here, which I think a lot of people hope and believe will, these prices could be just gone forever. Like legitimately forever.
I like looking at the log chart for that. I think the log chart tells a story for that kind of a topic then.
Yeah, maybe Banana, if you want to pull that up on your end on the YouTube. I know I don't get to look at it, but.
Yep. You want the log chart versus pulse chain?
I was talking about just in prices, like USD.
Yeah, okay. just USD. Yeah, just, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of talking in those terms, you know what I mean? Because when pulse chain starts to go up, like, I strongly believe the fact that pulse chain still is relatively low, like, that's giving users a discount on pTGC that wouldn't be there if Pulse was sitting at SAC rate. Pulse chain has technically been suppressing the pTGC price due to it creating lower lows for the last year and a half. I do believe that's going to change here soon.
Yeah.
I do believe Pulse chain is going to start increasing. That will rapidly take away the USD discount on pTGC and UFO.
I've got the USD chart pulled up. It's in log and it's in the weekly. It's on the. I got the weekly pulled up and it's up and to the right, man. It's a great looking chart.
A lot of people they think it's a Fugazi chart, but if you just maybe just go to Grok and just look up what that chart is designed to do, it just gives you a different vantage point on the dynamics of the flow of the actual token and what the dips look like from a different perspective.
Okay. I'll paste it into Grok and see what I get. It'll just take me a second.
Yeah, it'd be good for people to.
All right, hold on. I gotta select it. All right, Grok, tell me about this chart. Grok is very thorough, just so you know. Okay. But he's also pretty smart.
Well, let me go ahead and read this real quick. A logarithmic chart is used to visualize data that spans a wide range of values, especially when the data grows or shrinks exponentially or follows a power law distribution. It compresses large differences in scale, making it easier to see patterns, trends, or relative changes across orders of magnitude. So it's exactly what it just said. It allows you to see patterns or trends relative to changes across orders of magnitude better than just looking at, oh, it's down 80% versus, because a lot of the times,
right.
For example, if something is up, if something went from its beginning 20,000x, but is now down 80%, do you really think that the people who got in down at the bottom give a crap about the 80% retracement?
Nope.
No, that's what this is designed to do.
Okay, I asked Grok to give me summarize the history and the potential future of pTGC based on that chart. And I'll give you the conclusion because there's so much here. pTGC has a history of innovation as pulse chains first out. The hyperinflationary design that has shown both promise and volatility. Its future potential depends on pulse chain's growth and its own ecosystem mechanics and market sentiment. While it could see significant gains in a bullish scenario, risk like competition, this is where they go into their legal stuff. Their disclaimers. which even AI has to do apparently.
Yeah, we don't need disclaimers.
Yeah, we've got smart contracts. So it actually, I have gotten more information out of when I've done this with ChatGPT. So let me try ChatGPT.
It was just more a comment on the logarithmic chart, man. The way that, a lot of the times if you just want a different perspective on the 20 months of data aggregated into a chart in a way that you can visualize it based on people who got in the beginning versus, somebody just got in 3 months ago and now they're down 30%. This gives you this is why Richard likes to use this chart. And it's not just because, it makes Hex look good one way or the other. There's a good reason to use the logarithmic chart. It gives you a different perspective or vantage point over longer time frames.
Yeah. All right, I have a question. In the locking, in pTGC locking, people accrue locking rewards, like when people early end lock, those locking rewards are distributed to other lockers, but they're held in the smart contract until we claim them. When we claim them, unless we're in the top tier, the 100% tier, when we claim them, a percentage is sent to the dead address. So my curiosity is, how many tokens, if they were all claimed at the same time, if all the lockers have claimable tokens in their, access to claimable tokens, if everybody claimed their tokens in one day, for example, how many tokens would be sent to the dead address? Is there a way to find out?
I think that really what would be the big thing is just look at maybe the top 50 wallets and see if they have any pending.
Oh yeah, I can do that.
Rewards. You can look at their wallets maybe not, because now that Rabby.
No, I can still put in a wallet address. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So you can kind of look to see if any of those wallets have anything pending. Obviously, if they have something pending, you can see probably also what kind of tier they're in based on when their lock is ended. If it's already ended and they're just sitting in it, you can kind of take in the guess that, maybe they've only done a 2 year, 1 year or whatever.
Yep.
Or when it's been ended already. And then you can kind of take a guess like, okay, well, there's an extra 100 million pTGC that's going to get burned, or, I don't know, 500 million pTGC. Definitely sounds like a lot of work, though, for something that maybe isn't, like, just looking at it isn't going to get those people to claim,
Right. But it's a thought experiment. Like, how many billions potentially of tokens could we burn? I mean, we burned 42 million yesterday, thankfully. That's wonderful. That's like, we burned like 1.3 dolphin positions or something like that. That's awesome. But how many tokens are going to be burned? And they'll be claimed over time, I suppose, unless there's zombie wallets out there. But that'd be cool if we could burn, like, if everybody claimed, if we burned like 5 billion tokens or something like that. Yeah, man, that'd be amazing. But let's have a look. It'll take me a minute. I'll pop like a couple wallets in here to get some idea how many could potentially be burned. We'll just get a ballpark. Well, what else is happening? There wasn't any news this week, but except for Sui. So hopefully some Sui people are landing on Pulse Chain, honestly, because, there's a lot of hope over here.
Yeah, I think still to get people like that or people from Solana, we do need some green candles over here. Not like 50% green candles from like the exact bottom, like, you know, a good 2-3x's from here, I think is what those other chains need to actually make the move over here. Because they need to feel like they're missing out on something. They don't feel like they're missing anything right now.
No, it doesn't matter what a PRC20 does on Pulse Chain. It doesn't matter. You could have a PRC20 token go into the billions. It's not going to be enough. They need to see Pulse Chain, the next Ethereum. They need to see Pulse Chain moving.
Well, I kind of disagree with that. I think about, you know, the amount, and obviously Binance or BNB was moving up at this time, which obviously helped. But I think about like how many people got onboarded to BNB just from SafeLip, and it was a ton.
Yeah, but Zen, BNB was already massive, bro.
Yeah.
I was there the day they launched, man, and they had the biggest centralized exchange on the planet. It's not even the same. It's not the same kind of conversation, man. The Pulse Chain has to actually, as a blockchain, because everybody that knows anything about Pulse Chain knows, you can look at the chart and you can see that it doesn't have original investors and profits. You're just not going to get a big move into Pulse Chain until people feel like they're going to miss out on a massive new L1 move.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's kind of what I was saying. But I was just saying, I do think PRC20s are going to help onboard people to this chain, but once they get into the billions. But I agree, you know, you need people to feel like they are missing out on something over here, and our chart does not give anyone that feeling currently.
Yeah, and that's why, to me, I just, you know, Richard's definitely strategically waiting for the moment to make that happen, in my opinion. Did you see Ivan on Tech? He's like laughing, looking at the strategic reserve. Y'all think that that's your money and all this. That was hilarious. Freaking Ivan.
It just sits there forever. But you do know is if that money ever does start moving into Pulse Chain, everyone who thought like that is just going to say, shit. Like, oh my gosh, the money is moving into Pulse Chain.
Well, to give us some idea, I looked up one of the top holders at pTGC. The dude has 18 billion tokens in 2 separate locks. And he only has, if I can say only, he has less than 1 million claimable rewards. 580,000 claimable pTGC from locking. So he has been claiming his rewards. So that's good because he's burning a lot of tokens. I don't know how much, I can figure it out, but he's burning a lot of tokens. So kudos to whoever that is, because he's.
That's also why I tell my community, hey, if you guys have locks and it gets over a certain threshold that makes sense, just claim it. Because number one, you're fattening up your wallet, which means you'll earn more holding rewards. But number two, you are creating economic power because you are burning some of those tokens on your locks. Same thing applies for staking. You're not burning any tokens there, but you're taking them out of the contract, putting them in your wallet, which allows you to compound and get more rewards for your holdings every time you claim as well. So I would be active in claiming those, both for benefiting yourself, but also for the lock tokens, you're benefiting, you know, the project, because some of those, unless you have the 10-year lock or whatever, are getting burnt every time you claim.
Yeah, if anything, you're compounding your value even if you're in a 10-year lock.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because you know you're not earning on those tokens until you claim them, because they're in the smart contract. And once you claim them, if you're not in the highest tier, part of the tokens goes to the burn address, and the rest go to your go to your wallet, where they immediately start earning reflections. Then you can stake them, of course, or lock them up to earn even more. But like you said, Nick, like I think you mentioned like once a week, that's probably about the maximum frequency that you want to claim your rewards, because claiming more than about once a week, unless there's a large influx of yield, is really not, it's not as profitable.
Yeah, it depends on everybody's bag size, but obviously you only want to claim if it's worth more than, the PLS gas fees it's going to cost to claim. Otherwise, you're just kind of eating into APR. So you got to do the math for yourself, what's worth it to you to make sense to start compounding. But definitely be active in claiming those for both selfish reasons, compound, get more rewards yourself, and then unselfish reasons where if they're locked rewards, you're helping the protocol by burning tokens on supply.
Yeah.
Hey, Banana, while we're here, do you want to do a quick little locking calculator scenario with pTGC at higher numbers, what those locking rewards could be in the future with the success of Pulse Chain and pTGC over time?
Yes, I do.
We're just on the topic, and I think it is a fun little experiment to do by, just for everyone listening, we're still very, very early to pTGC. Like I think I said yesterday, only 3,000 people hold over $1,000 worth of pTGC. Pretty much nothing. No one even really knows about Pulse Chain. Barely any of the world is even in crypto. Literally, pretty much no one even knows that pTGC exists. But we're working in the direction of possibly revolutionizing how assets even function in this world. On blockchain, right? We're trying to do that on blockchain. Huge goal. Who knows if we'll reach it, but I do see mechanically how we actually have a pretty good foundation set up for this growth. Obviously, we need adoption to blockchain, we need adoption to Pulse Chain, we need adoption to pTGC, so definitely a long road ahead of us. But mechanically, I think we have every skill and everything under our belt that we need to make that happen. Time will tell. What this locking calculator does is the opportunity that is in front of us right now is very, very cheap pTGC in comparison of what it could be in the future. The thing with like even Bitcoin, right, the first 2-3 years, it was very, very cheap. A lot of people didn't realize how cheap it was the first 3 years. Like Nick was saying, they were literally mining it for free with their gaming computers. If those users actually locked out a portion of their Bitcoin, doesn't have to be the whole amount, but let's say it was 50%, and let that actually go out 5-10 years. Most people didn't, right? Most people took profits at a 10x, 20x to where they weren't actually able to change their life as drastically as they could have. What's super sweet about pTGC is you can actually earn APY off of staking and locking and just holding, to where even though you're putting out your initial purchase very, very far, you're still going to get constant APYs dripping into your wallet to where you can still better your life in real life, which is important, some in real life upgrades, whatever you want to call it, while also never touching a portion of your initial and letting that stuff actually mature into possibly not just year changing value, 5-year changing value, not even possibly life changing value for yourself. If blockchain turns into and Pulse Chain turns into what we believe it can turn into, what pTGC could technically turn into, and no financial advice, this stuff can go to zero, could technically become generational wealth. Printing value for you daily, printing value for your family's generations daily.
Yeah, I think the biggest example of that we just had a day or two ago, which is Bitcoin Pizza Day. Maybe most of you know the history, maybe you don't, but essentially an individual was very early to mining Bitcoin on his computer at home, and he exchanged a Papa John's guy 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas. And, if you would have held it for that amount of time, till now, it's worth over $1 billion. And they interviewed the guy, I didn't see the interview this year, but last year, and he's been living You can tell he didn't hold much any of his Bitcoin because he's living a very modest life, says he still keeps up with Bitcoin, but he still has to work and, do his thing. So it's like, imagine the guy was mining so much Bitcoin that he was willing to swap 10,000 for 2 pizzas, worth $1 billion today. And now he's still working a 9-to-5 job, has a kid, and lives in like a ranch house. Like he owns a home, he has some cars, but you can tell he wished there was some kind of locking mechanism to lock up some of the Bitcoin that he was mining back then because, still working after giving up billions and billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin for pizza is pretty wild. And I think that's a good lesson. Maybe you guys should go look at your pTGC bag and do a tiered locking mechanism, at least for 5, 10, 15% of your portfolio.
Yeah, and that's a big part. Like, if you don't have to do anything, but you don't have to look at your whole bag and lock that thing out 10 years if you feel like you're going to need some of it or you want to need some of it in the near future. But I definitely think looking at it and saying a portion of this I am willing to risk long term on this highly risky asset that can actually change not only my life, but my family's life and generations after my life if this protocol pulls off like technically the unbelievable, right?
Well, and due to burnt liquidity, if Pulse Chain survives and is a multi-sectoral layer 1 network like we believe, and the protocol just keeps running like it is, then, much higher upside potential and large APRs that never stop coming.
Yeah, definitely. Mechanically, when you run the numbers of what pTGC does on its own, when you run the numbers of what Pulse Chain can do on its own just with very basic adoption, it starts to even hit like somewhat unthinkable numbers just with very modest estimates. Like I'm sure, Nick, you've run some very modest estimates. Mando, you've run, like anyone that's been here for a while has probably run some modest estimates. If you start getting into some somewhat bullish estimates, very small amounts of pTGC can change your life.
What's interesting is I think, we've kind of kept the same rhetoric as a community since pTGC was 300,000 market cap, 1 million market cap, 2 million market cap. And we got more believers on board. Obviously, the price went up, but it's like, we're saying the same things we said when pTGC was 2 million and then went to 350 million. Now we're saying these things again right now and it's at 120 million. So what's the next milestone? 1.2 billion? And then we'll probably be saying the same thing at the dip at 700 million. Probably saying the same thing and you'll have another opportunity, more people finding out about it. But the machine keeps working. Pulse Chain hasn't really got started. And I would get involved and get on for the ride.
Yeah, one of the ones I remember is it was pretty much last summer, so probably close to a year ago now. I think we're around a 5 million market cap or something like that. And I was explaining on Spaces, maybe 10 million market, I don't know. I was explaining the X multiplier to people and explaining like, hey, like people in crypto, like a lot of people say like, oh, I'm going to crypto, I want to get 100X. But they are like willing to gamble on the most nonsense stuff. And they don't actually understand how to get that 100X. And even the people building these tokens don't even understand mechanically how to get 100X or more, right? And I actually broke it down how easy it is to get a 100X, especially with the unique opportunity that we have here on Pulse Chain. I explained it as, hey, all we need to do is a 10X against Pulse Chain. We just need Pulse Chain to do a 10X, right? That equals 100X. So this was last summer. pTGC went and did I think it was a 30X against Pulse Chain. Sadly, Pulse Chain only did like a 3X in that move, but that still almost got us to 100X from that level. It was like a 40X or something, or 50X, whatever 45X, I think it was. Yeah, 45X. We did a 45X move. So pTGC completely pulled its end, and Pulse Chain didn't. Well, now we're at like that same exact range. And I'm saying it again, guys, it is very, very easy to do 100X from these levels. All pTGC needs to do is a 10X, and Pulse Chain needs to do a 10X. And you just did 100X in an asset that actually has sustainability, deflation, APY written code, a strong knit community, people who are locked out with millions of dollars, 10 years. and liquidity to back the exits. When you start running a checklist, I do believe pTGC is covering a lot of the bases that people are looking for. And sadly, the biggest one is the X's, right? A lot of people are saying, I want X's. Like that box is kind of over everything for me. And they'll look at a token that's been out for a year and a half and think, oh, like I need to find something that just launched a week ago. This is the same thing people were saying last summer, right? They thought, oh, it's too late. It's at a $5-10 million market cap. Well, then it went and ran 45x in a matter of a few months. I feel like the situation is very much the same. Calculator.
What calculator did you want to look at?
The lock-in calculator, the one that shows like if pTGC is at 10 cents or 1 cent and someone unlocks that amount of tokens, you know, what you could get us if you hold this amount of tokens or whatever.
Yeah. Yes. Let's get to that in 1 second, if you don't mind. I am finalizing a little data point for us. Give me 1 second. Okay, so the number two wallet and the number 3 wallet between them could burn 39 million pTGC if they claimed. 39 million. That's what we burned yesterday with the Dow. Okay, calculator. So we averaged 395 million unlocks. 395 million tokens were early end locked in any 30-day period last year. But if you go back 30 days from today, it's actually 162 million. So we're going to use that. We're going to use that 162 million just to be realistic. Do you want to give us some numbers, Zen, like how much a person has locked for simulating this, and then a price per pTGC?
Yeah, what's a short position go for right now? I mean, look,
good question.
Someone was just posted yesterday.
Probably 150 grand, I'm guessing. That's going to be 290 million tokens. 292. 113,000.
Yeah, let's use a short position for the fun of it. We can drop down to a dolphin position after that, which would be like 13,000.
That's a good idea. Okay. Short position.
Just show like levels. I do think it's important to show real levels because I think eventually real investors will be coming to Pulse-Chain with real capital, right? We keep pretending that, so people are going to come in with 5-10 grand, but when prices are moving up and values coming into crypto, you very rapidly can see people grabbing very decently large positions because they have to spend decent amounts of money to get those positions. Last move up of pTGC and UFO, we're seeing $100,000 clips coming in. So I think it's fun to also run those scenarios as well.
Okay, what do you want to do for a price?
I think a penny is fine, or 10 cents is fine. 10 cents is with more successful pulse. And I think a penny is attainable with a very low successful pulse chain.
We're 25x from a penny. Okay, yeah, I was thinking 10 cents also. Okay, so if in any given day period, I'm going to summarize what we're doing here. This calculator is going to simulate 162 million tokens being early end locked in a 30-day period. That could be multiple unlockers. 30%, and those, if they're early end locked, that means they're forfeiting 30% of their principal to the other lockers. So this is simulating one locker. He has 292 million pTGC and a 10-year lock, so he's going to keep 100%. And the price is now 10 cents. Let's see, he's going to earn 102,000 tokens, and their value is $10,200. That's what the value of that unlock would be for in a 30-day period for this holder, which is pretty juicy.
Yeah, and that's on top of the other APY you're receiving just from the basic volume of the protocol.
Right. Yeah, that's in addition to your reflections for holding and staking reward for staking, because you got to be staked in order to lock tokens.
Yeah. So in that example, right, that guy got a 10% ROI just from that 1 month in his locking rewards. That's not considering the price appreciation. He's already up hundreds of X's. That's not considering the staking rewards he possibly could be receiving, the holding rewards he's possibly receiving. When you break it down like that, it feels like a no-brainer, but it's not, because we're in a very risky asset class.
Yeah. Okay. So I just changed it to a 55% reward. So now he's a 90-day staker. And 90 days, a lot can change in 90 days, but really, this is me. I'm being genuine. I would, if I had liquid pTGC right now, I would lock it for 90 days at this point in the cycle. That's me. So a 90-day lock, let's say he's in a 90-day lock, he's going to keep 55% of whatever he claims. That would be $5,600. And why is the 90-day lock important? Because it gives you liquidity. You can unlock your tokens at any time after the 90-day period.
I think it also it shows strength of the ecosystem, right? Even if people who are staked right now don't have as long-term mind horizon as other people, if they go the 90-day period, that after they fulfill those locks, they can remain in the lock. And in the future, what I believe that shows is the commitment of this community, right? I think it's like 40%. I don't have the dashboard in front of me. Banana, maybe you do on the stats page. What percentage of holders are actually locked right now?
Yeah, I think it's 40. I think it's 40%. I'm pulling it up right now.
So when you take the people locked, obviously some of those people could leave at any moment, but they do have a few steps in front of them. And usually by having those few steps in front of them, and the fact of them actually taking the steps to lock in the first place, means that they're probably very decently long-term players. So you take those locking people, and then you take the burn address. That's 50% of the supply that is technically in hands of people saying, I'm not trading this very rapidly, right? The debt address isn't trading it ever. The lockers are pretty much locking up their tokens saying, hey, I'm in this protocol long term. That only puts 50% of the supply in either just stakers' hands or holders' hands. And you could even say, hey, the stakers have kind of long-term time horizons too, because there's a 1% fee on the exit of the stake, which isn't much. But, when you add that one in, what's that get the supply up to? That's kind of just not on the market for trading.
Yeah.
I can look if you're not pulling it up.
Oh, we have 39.7 of the token. 39.7% of the tokens are locked, staked and locked.
And what's staked?
26.7. So you add those two numbers together, and that's how much is staked. We have a strong ecosystem. 65%. Yeah.
Yeah, so 66, and then plus the burn address, which is 12% roughly.
True.
So we're at 78. So 78% of supply is in holders' hands that have somewhat of a long-term conviction.
Well, then you got the burn supply.
I just said that. Yeah, 78% of the supply is either burned, staked, or locked. And then you say, okay, well, 3% of it's in liquidity, so that can't be sold. That's waiting to be purchased.
Yep.
So now you're at 81%.
Yeah.
Zach, can you hear me?
I hear you.
So I was just looking at, I love, it's one thing to talk about numbers, but it's another thing to kind of talk about kind of like where we've already been, because that's real.
Mm-hmm.
That's reality. That's coming to reality in a way, right? So at the previous all-time high, we were, I think, like a 6x prairie away from the 1 penny.
Yes.
So because we were that close to a penny, you could say that speculating that pTGC will hit a penny it's normative to speculate that in this industry at this point, right? A whale position in pTGC at 1 penny is worth $30 million. That's the equivalent of being the number 31 holder of Shiba Inu and being in the top 30 of SHIB. And we were already almost just a 6x away from that for anyone who held a whale position. And then so you could just kind of go down the list of what that looks like for a shark position, and to think that we've already hit those kind of numbers or just below them before Pulse Chain has done anything should be indicative of looking at real key performance indicators, real data, understanding, capital inflows, and saying exactly what Zen is saying. The math is there, not just hypothetically, it's technically there. We've already been very close to a penny already, which literally turns a whale into a $30 million position. Now, what does that mean? That means that person is wealthy, right? That means that people who don't have whale positions that are less, they're wealthy, right? The people who are getting it now, they've just done amazingly well. Now, does that mean you're going to go and hit the chart and smash the chart and just take $30 million out? No, because you can't. Now, it's the same thing in SHIB. It's the same thing in any of these massive mega cryptocurrencies. You don't have to do that. There's no precedent for doing that when you can't. You can't do that, right? The point is that with a system like this, SHIB doesn't have this. ETH doesn't have this. Bitcoin doesn't have this. Pulse Chain doesn't have these very unique, powerful mechanics where you've got everything that all those other things have, plus, and we've already been that close to those kind of numbers with our blockchain and our core assets haven't even performed yet. So, like anyone that I have a conversation with and I show them these numbers, if you're just a realist and you're just looking at what's already happened and base that off of the undervaluation of the assets, it's kind of mind-boggling. It's kind of mind-boggling. And it's amazing that people don't see it. Or they haven't been introduced to it yet. Or they're on chain and they just, I don't know. It is what it is, right?
Yeah, one big thing, even for if someone was to get their hands on a whale position, I didn't hear what that costs right now. I think it's quite a bit, right? But some people might want a whale position, or let's even use a shark position. In other cryptocurrencies, if you are a large holder within that cryptocurrency, let's say you're in the top 100. Right now, the stakers that can make proposals are the top 100, and some people want to get to that level. Well, in that situation, other assets, if you are a top 100 holder, you kind of have some power, and with that power comes some responsibility to an extent. Or you can just dump it on the chart and kind of just walk away. A lot of people do this also. But
1.12 million for 2.9 billion tokens, just so you know.
Obviously, like, most people aren't coming in with that, but I definitely think it's a possibility that someone comes in with that kind of money. We've seen it in the past. People have wanted whale positions and have tried to work towards getting them. But even let's use shark position or something that's, also in the top 100 tokens. The nice thing about this system that I really think is something that's going to have a lot of success over the long term is when we start hitting these numbers that are, let's say 30x from here, like you said, the penny, and people 30x their position size. Let's say $100,000 turns into $3 million. Well, now that $3 million is earning APY. It's a hyper-deflationary asset. It has enough liquidity that makes these people feel comfortable. It's got a really strong community base. So it's hitting a lot of these metrics that actually make these people who possibly turned $100,000 into $3 million very, very secure, right? I'm sure they'll take a little bit of profits. Let's say they take 500K out, $1 million or whatever, right? Like, who knows? But even with the remaining portfolio, in a lot of other assets that are like top tier assets, they're not earning for holding up the price of the asset. They're actually just sitting there and somewhat being other people's exit liquidity, letting the small fish play, but they're not earning off of anything of that. They can actually sit multiple cycles, and they're kind of waiting for them to go round 2 cycle. A lot of times it doesn't come because they don't really have a lot of anything under the hood in the first place. And they can't even really take profits too much because then they just hurt the rest of their bag. What's super cool about the system is if you are someone in the top 100, let's say, you're earning APY the entire time, and that APY that you're receiving isn't based on inflation. It's based on literally value being generated from the machine that you're supporting by staying in the system, and the system's actually paying you for doing so. And you can, we talked about that locking, take a 10K a month out of that, or, let's say you also earn 10K from staking, and let's say 5K from holding. These are just examples, but you could possibly be walking away with 25K a month via that APY, and that 25K a month was from value generated. And that means when you sell, or if you sell that 25K, you're actually not even hurting in the chart because it wouldn't have landed in your wallet if it wasn't purchased in the first place. I don't know of a lot of other assets where the people who have done very well in the asset actually just get paid for keeping the asset up in price, holding the asset, and being paid in a form that isn't inflation. Because if you get paid in a form that's inflation, the only place that value can come from is the chart itself. If there is no value entered in to pay out that, the only thing that can happen is you're just pushing the chart down, which obviously affects the rest of your bag and onboarding, etc. Time will tell, but I do think structure-wise, pTGC has a lot of things figured out that a lot of people don't realize. And I think on this next move, it possibly can start to really show like how powerful of a machine this is, not on Pulse Chain, but in crypto in general, in really asset class in general.
Yeah, crazy thing is, man, it's the people that are in this space, you kind of in a elite little club of in the know. It's obviously the highest form of speculation, but when you've got 20 months of math and flawless execution, and the thesis that I remember Zen when you first came out, and the first space I heard you speak in, and it was just kind of like so innocent, like you just kind of like, yeah, this thing's kind of just designed to just keep going up to the right kind of a thing, and I'm like, okay, let me talk to this guy real quick. But 20 months later, like there's just so much information and data. The coolest thing about the Grays, man, for me, just as a guy who comes from that world, you know, is just that we have so much information we can pull from. Like I can act like Nick's in here too, like being able to look at key performance indicators and not just one, but like 50 and go over them and look at them on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis and look at how this mathematical machine works. It's a mathematical machine. This is a mathematically designed cryptocurrency with set parameters that can't alter, right? It's just very interesting. Just to see you be part of it has just been a massive like mind share. Obviously, Zen, which you created, sparked an entire new category of cryptocurrency.
Yep.
I mean, I gotta give it to you, man. You know, my kudos to you, man. It's just there's nothing like it.
Yeah, the space. I kind of recall it too because it's like the first time that I kind of said it, and I remember B-Roots and Ian kind of chuckled a little bit, but then they like dove into it and were like, "Oh, damn!"
Yeah, I remember that.
It kind of makes sense. Yeah, I said that pretty much exactly. I'm like, hey, like this is gonna sound crazy, but I think I mechanically and mathematically kind of figured out how to make a token pretty much go up and to the right forever. Obviously, subtracting the high volatility pushes up and the high volatility pushes down due to human interaction, but just mechanically driven, it will just continuously go up and to the right forever, as long as the chain just doesn't get turned off. And again, yeah, it was kind of like a chuckle and then like, okay, dude, like we've been here in crypto for a long time. You're the first person to ever come up and say this. But now we have 20 months of data that kind of fall back on what mathematical predictions I was making at that point. And this was at like a 500K market cap or something like that. And really, like, all I'm getting at is mathematically nothing's changed. Mechanically, nothing's changed. The snowball has just gotten bigger, and it's, you know, and every time it cycles around, which is pretty much like every day, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Some days you don't see it because the price of the network's going down, or it's on those volatility shifts downwards when people are taking profits, just like any asset. But mechanically, it's doing as we hypothesized, right? That I hypothesized it before, like anyone even believed me when I said it. If people believed me, obviously the price wouldn't have been at 500K market cap, and it even went up, I think, to 5 mil and then came back to that 500K because people just thought it was, you know, a narrative that I was trying to push. But I think it's pretty clear at this point that mechanically and mathematically it's going to do what it does with or without you, and you can kind of decide to get on the ship or to get left behind.
I remember hearing that language when I first came in to the Grays currencies about it being a forever up and to the right token. And I've forgotten that. And I hadn't heard that in a long time.
Well, he literally verbatim, I'll never forget. I quote, I designed a cryptocurrency that's pretty much designed to go up and to the right forever, end quote. And I'm like, dude, this guy's blowing so much steam up everyone's ass. I don't know what the hell's going on here, right? And I'm like, okay. So I went to the website, I'm checking stuff out. I'm like, oh shit, this is actually serious. I was like, okay. But it was just so innocent. It wasn't, you know, normally it's like the sleazeball sales pitch, car salesman guy, just, you know, gig it word this, gig it chat that, BS language. And, you know, Prairie Zen, he's just such a humble, just kind, just straightforward person. You could sense the genuineness behind the statement. And I was like, wow, okay. But yeah, 20 months later, man, and it's just nothing but up and to the right with exactly what he said. Obviously, the massive volatility in between, but the trend is the friend, right?
Yeah, I actually quote tweeted this. Someone quote tweeted it and I saw it and I thought it was super fitting for us. So then I quote tweeted it also. It's a tweet from 2020 from Richard. And it says, the best investments are discounted due to few understanding their true value at the time. The market ignorance is your gain. By the time the average investor understands why something is great, it is too late. So that kind of goes back to, when I went on that stream and was trying to educate people on this, that some people were kind of ignorant about it and didn't necessarily believe it, and then people started to see it working, and then they started to believe it, and ultimately, as Amanda was saying, people even tried to mimic it without even understanding it, right? Without even knowing how much hard work that was put into even creating such a benevolent system in the first place, missing a lot of key features that really I'm not even going to keep tapping into, because at this point I'm just going to let it remain with our system. But the more important thing is we had tons of people believing, but when the market kind of comes back down, is in crypto, people's mind share starts to disappear again. And I look at it at that exact moment again right now, right? Is not that many people are paying attention or being ignorant to what the machine has already proven to do. But by the time the average investor knows about Pulse Chain, by the time the average investor is even in crypto, and by the time the average investor is in pTGC to what it could be, I won't say it's too late, because it's actually designed to just keep doing what it's been doing and actually be a very sustainable asset in growth. But the opportunity window is just going to start shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, to where this is one thing with inflationary tokens that is interesting, right? When the market shifts down and the inflation keeps coming out, it actually keeps sending the token lower and lower and lower, giving people that find it later actually a very, very decent entry point. I don't see that happening as much. It will happen, but I don't see that happening as much with the pTGC system. Because in the market shifts down, let's say the bear market, there is no inflation coming up or just stagnant supply that will get sold onto the market for that time period, to give people the entry point that they were looking for that possibly came years later, right? It sadly will just remain deflationary, keep eating up at that supply. And I do think that dip will be a little bit more shortened compared to what people might hope comes for them. And that's kind of why I was saying what we saw a month ago possibly might be the cheapest price that you ever see in this asset ever again for eternity. Because inflation is kind of designed in a way to where as people find out about it, you want it to kind of not get pushed up in price infinitely, because more people want to get into it at a decent price, right? Like even with fiat, you don't want fiat technically become more and more and more valuable, because then it drives its value up, which technically would make things cheaper. But you want things to kind of just stay level valued, so as more humans get born, et cetera, you want it to kind of stay, which is technically people finding out about fiat is more humans being born. So inflating kind of makes the value stay even. So as adoption comes in inflation, you can actually inflate a supply and let the value not be hurt, because adoption is constantly coming in, taking up that inflation. But if you have constant adoption coming in, that's the demand side, and you're not increasing the supply, you're removing supply, basic supply, and demand 101 pretty much tells you your price is just going to be freaking shoved up into the right. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there will only be so many people. Whoever wants to get out of their positions is going to get out of their positions, right? And then we'll know, and it'll hit that floor again. And at that point, whatever it is, whatever that floor is, we're going to know. there'll be a consensus. You know, it'd be like, it looks like, yeah, I mean, if they were going to sell, they would have sold by now, kind of a thing. And at that point, it's like, holy shit, round two, that was it. That was the floor, right? On a system like this, with as many people that know about this system, with the thesis and the performance of the asset, the amount of buy and burn, the amount of activity that's gone on at that bottom, whatever that is, you'd have to be an absolute moron to not enter the grays at that point.
So even like right now, there's only 20 people in the space. There's only 3,000 people that hold $1,000 worth of it or more, and it's holding it 3 times or 2x below SAC rate. It's an unknown asset in the grand. Like no one knows about it. It's just unknown. Like we know about it. We're like crypto enthusiasts, but no one knows about what we're talking about here in this random space on Twitter and crypto Twitter world. It's like hilarious, really, when you think about it. But I agree. I think, you know, the next, like, there of course will be and I think a lot of people have an idea of taking out profits this cycle, right? You should take profits every cycle, and I think wherever that is, there will be profit taking, and that will create a massive opportunity in the pTGC ecosystem, right? Is that opportunity cheaper than what the prices are today? I absolutely think not. I do not think that opportunity will be cheaper than the prices today. I think so many people will know about pTGC by the time, and when I say so many, it's really still going to be like not many, right? But way more than that know about it today. And I think there will be a line of people waiting at the door for that supply, because even in that bear market, those people are going to have to compete against the DAO, against the automated functions, against UFO, against the people who want to increase their positions, who got, you know, possibly not the cheapest prices because they came in with retail. There isn't going to be an inflation thing that's kind of pushing the price down a little bit further during those non-market good times to give people cheaper and cheaper prices like a lot of other apps have. There will be a demand feature on it constantly during that period, plus supply reduction.
Yeah, I mean, think about the fact of, you know, what the OA did with X. And, you know, at some point it was like, okay, guys, yeah, you've abused the system enough, and then no more of that happening now. Right?
Well, I think that's like, I don't think X has had a demand issue. I think the demand has actually been somewhat there. The amount of people buying the dip of Hex, I think it was a supply, and I don't even think it's an issue. I think it's actually, in a way, an opportunity for people who found out about Hex not that year one. Like, there's a whole large group of Hexkins that actually are down on their portfolios on Hex. And the inflation actually gave these users the ability to get decent amounts of Hex that they would have never been able to get if there wasn't I'm not going to say crazy, but a large inflation to Hex. Like, it's not as bad as like fiat or something like that, but it was there. It caused the prices to go lower, which gave the ability to people who came in, let's say, near the top, if they actually believe in the financial product of Hex, it gave them the ability to get way more Hex than they probably ever thought they were going to have.
Yeah, but
that inflation away.
My point was, I hear what you're saying. My point was obviously just that, you know, some individuals who got very lucky, who had 50 million, 100 million, 200 million Hex, could do those rolling stakes because of the inflation. And it was just forever down pressure. The system doesn't have that.
Yes, exactly. It was a constant supply increase, and the demand wasn't strong enough to keep that floor. So he pretty much canceled out the supply increase, making it almost supply stagnant. Like, not completely supply stagnant. There still is a little bit of increase, but the demand should be able to withstand the supply increase now, which equals in price increase.
Well, the supply increase now is basically right around the same as Bitcoin, or a little bit less, from what I know. You know.
But I do think the supply increase that was going on for a 4-year period before that happened was in a way bullish, because it gave the new hex people, the ones that weren't able to scoop, 50 million, 100 million, because prices were so high, it gave them low hex prices. If they literally really wanted it now, they got the chance. Who knows if they acted on it, right? They're going to wish they acted on it when prices are recovered. Some people did act on it, I believe, right? And now they're decent holders of hex, and they probably never thought they were going to be. I don't think pTGC is going to give people that opportunity.
What do you think, Zen? What do you think, in quotes, is a good position in hex?
So, like, the person who onboarded me to hex spent very little money on hex. And near the top, he obviously had crazy amounts of money, most of it staked. He was living off of what he had liquid at the time. And it was like, gosh, I don't even like really guessing because I don't remember the exact numbers, but I want to say it was around 10 million. So at the top, it was worth around $5 million, right? We pretty much were at 50 cent hex. This is the guy who onboarded me. He spent very little money on it. Like, I think he told me he spent like $600 or something.
You know what was interesting about the video that Richard put out recently? When he got to the point about if people don't start listing the tokens, that he mentioned that competitors are going to start coming into the market. I thought that was a very interesting comment that he made.
Yeah. I think Richard has been forced into creating his own products for about everything. And if they force him to create an exchange or a legitimate on-ramp tool, like, I don't even think it needs to be an exchange, but just a very, very clean, easy on-ramping tool to pulse chain to where we don't have to do that crazy route, definitely makes it hard for on-ramping. I don't see a reason why he doesn't have the solution to that.
Well, remember, he prefaced it, though, by talking first about the fact that we have much more favorable and clear regulatory environment now, so that if somebody wants to launch a centralized exchange, there's an actual pathway to doing that in this new administration. So, and they are. So, could you imagine if RH actually created his? We already know he tried to do it by getting the money transmitter licenses that he was denied for whatever reason at the time. But could you imagine an RH, like a CZ, but an RH centralized exchange, like his version of a Binance, with Pulse Chain and all his assets listed on it? That would be just...
Yeah, I think if we don't get adoption by centralized exchanges soon, I think they're forcing him in that direction. And that's kind of what he's saying. It's like, hey, I want to work with you, not against you. Who wants to work with me?
That's what it sounded like to me.
Does anyone else care to come up and talk? It's hard to top that conversation, though, guys. get it. People might feel intimidated to come and talk after all that.
Well, I'll bring up more things then about the design of pTGC. Maybe you'll have something to say about this, but obviously it was the first of its kind. It is the best of its kind. There's nothing else that even comes close to it from a real investor standpoint in the future. The reason why I say that, and not to hate on anybody trying to do cool things in crypto or anything like that, but the reason why I say that, let's say, for example, like the founder left and sold all of his coins and just, or whatever, just took half his profits. The chart goes back down 95%, whatever it is. Because of the design of pTGC, because it is 100% decentralized and it's completely renounced, it 100% makes sense for a new class of investors to come in and just continue to run with it, because there isn't any amount of capital in the design that goes to any certain type of decentralized entity that just profits them. So forward looking, the design of pTGC to me is just a genius, because no matter what happens, there will always be a group of people that will see the opportunity, take the position, and keep running with it. And it's obviously as long as Pulse Chain is a successful layer one, it makes sense to do that. With a lot of these things, you got certain wallets that go here, certain wallets that go there, and it wouldn't make any sense to do that with those things. But I see that the design being 100% benevolent toward the system, with no percentage going to anything else. To me, that's the forward-lookingness of the Grays. That's why I like it.
Yeah. So obviously in crypto, I think being legitimately decentralized for an asset to actually start ranking like in the top assets of crypto is 100% a necessity. If it does have centralized ownership and stuff like that, that's fine. But as far as the code functions, I think it needs to be fully decentralized. And when I say centralized ownership, I mean like someone owns a good chunk of the asset. But the thing is if that person decides to leave, like if for some reason they hit numbers that they want to hit, or they aren't that benevolent like they acted like they were, you want the system to be able to still be able to function just as good as ever, or just the code function as is without that person there, right? And that's how crypto is meant to be. It's not meant to be reliant on a single individual. And if that individual changes the direction of how they, of their belief, or if they're even involved, or even worst case scenario, a horrible accident in the real world, right? If that one individual is now gone, is the asset now gone? And I mean, as far as the asset, yeah, it's still there on the blockchain, but is there a reason for that asset, to thrive on without that person? Can that asset kind of even outlive that own person's legacy, that own person's ability? Because that's the kind of goals I don't think people are realizing what pTGC is striving for. It's a situation that isn't dependent on one individual doing an action, but dependent on literally a decentralized cryptocurrency to redefine how assets exist with man, how man interacts with money, how money interacts with man. Obviously, this isn't dollars. This is like numbers on the blockchain. It's just a big math equation. But you want this math equation to be technically constantly adaptable with whoever is whatever group of people are benevolent and believing in the system, right? Because those people can change throughout years rapidly. For an example, if you ask Michael Saylor, he was probably going to be one of the biggest holders of Bitcoin 10 years ago, he would have laughed in your face. But look at him now. He probably has the most care about Bitcoin over pretty much a lot of the Bitcoin maxis. He's spent more money than pretty much all of the Bitcoin maxis. He deserves to have say over that system.
I'm seeing just a quick note. Panos is saying, I've negotiated with MEXC to get Pulse Chain relisted. They have agreed to relist us with no listing fee. They just need the typical 60,000 of liquidity for market makers. This is the lowest hanging fruit as far as an exchange listing goes. They have sent me all the forms to get Pulse Chain listed again and are ready to go. To clear up any misconceptions, one of the previous listing donors removed the liquidity from MEXC and is not interested in re-adding it. We are working on getting liquidity put together as we speak. Just a side note.
Yeah, I don't know how much user base uses MEXC. Me personally, I've never used it. I think that's a good step in the right direction, though. By getting listed by one, I think a few might follow. I'm definitely hoping that we get some of these tier one exchanges, though. If that's considered a tier one exchange, I don't know, but definitely Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, I think is the direction we need to keep heading towards. In the United States, I think a lot of people use Coinbase. I don't know about other countries so much.
Yeah, it's Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken, and Binance US now that they're open again, predominantly.
But that is good news. And
yeah, I think MEXC listing is less about Pulse Chain adoption or Pulse Chain prices, but what it does do is allow a centralized exchange on-ramp and off-ramp into the network if they're supporting Pulse Chain network, which means people that don't feel comfortable with or don't know how to play with bridges don't have to do that. They can send any token they want, trade it for, ETH or a stablecoin or PLS directly, and then just withdraw that to their MetaMask wallet on the Pulse Chain network, which is something that really isn't an option for centralized exchange players currently. And MEXC does have restrictions around U.S. traders and such. But normally, even with trading restrictions, you can still kind of use it as an in and out wallet for those centralized exchange players. So definitely not a negative. Isn't going to pump Pulse Chain, but definitely allows another opportunity for onboarding and exporting. And if volume is good over there, maybe some other smaller centralized exchanges will FOMO off of that as well and integrate Pulse Chain network on their platform.
Well, I think Nick, that we haven't had a tier 2 even list since we won the case. So starting that kind of snowball after the clarity that Richard committed no fraud, there is no case anymore. It will be 1, then it'll be 2, then it'll be 3. You got to start somewhere, right?
Yep, of course.
Yeah, especially if the smaller exchanges acquire their own tokens, right? Just because they want the volume, then that equals buy pressure on our charts.
Yeah, but going back to what I was saying earlier, when I kind of put that in there, I really like the design of the grays, man. Because everything else that's kind of come into fruition that's tried to mimic it, whatever, it would make no sense to buy it in the future if the founders bounced or whatever, because you would just be giving them a portion of all the money that comes in, and they're not even involved with it anymore.
Yeah, no, I never again. And really, I know if I bounced, that obviously would take a huge hit on pTGC most likely. Obviously that's realistic to think, I would assume. But people could pick it up wherever it was left off, wherever that floor was. And all those funds are accessible by the people who stake the pTGC token. And that's what's important.
Well, that's exactly right. Like and I'll tell you, just as somebody who holds, if you said, you know what, I need to spend time with my wife and my 2 kids, I can't be doing this 24/7 anymore, whatever, which that's not the case. I mean, that's not the intent right now for you. But if that did happen, it doesn't change anything. Like the system runs perfectly as it is. Nothing changes. The proposals still get proposed. The money still, the people who hold the most stake to protect the system hold the most stake to protect the system. They can vote down any bullshit proposals. It's perfect. But with everything else, if you don't have that 100% decentralization, where all the funds are going back to the people, it just becomes like a gimmick field, in a way, because it's just part of the funds are just going to enrich somebody else, right? And I just don't think that real investors can look at a system like that long term, in my opinion. If the founders leave, I'd say, if the founders leave.
Yeah, I think in the scenario, a lot of times, a founder most likely has best intentions for their product. But the hard part is, sometimes they do have best intentions for the product and they just no longer want to keep taking care of the product, or, who knows, right? There's tons. I could literally create a list that goes on and on of the thousands of tokens that have came out where the founder stopped acting in the best interest of the protocol, right? Literally, it's a more common occurrence than the founder acting benevolent forever for the protocol. You know what I mean? So it's definitely not an unrealistic example. I'm not saying that's going to happen on Pulse Chain, because I think actually people on Pulse Chain are a lot more benevolent than other chains, because they actually care about their products lasting long term, and they care about the integrity of their name and stuff like that. Compared to other chains, I do believe it's less of the case. But it is, I appreciate you bringing up, because it is an important feature to pTGC that I think a lot of people overlook, that the fact that if I died tomorrow, you wouldn't have to trust that my wife, or if someone or these other people are going to act in the best interest of you, because the people who actually get to interact with the smart contract that pays out the funds are the holders themselves, or the stakers themselves. It's not any specific entity. And that's very, very important, because accidents do happen, and you don't want, accidents do happen. This is super realistic, and if an accident happened to me, I would love for pTGC to live on without me, and the community to pick up where we left off, and not think because I'm gone that the asset cannot thrive without my existence. I would actually appreciate if it thrived on without my existence. It would actually mean the world to me. Obviously, I don't want something to happen to me, so, knock on wood. But that's what I think really makes an asset be an asset that actually kind of changes the world long term. Or, I know that's a bold statement, changing the world, but I do believe Richard's trying to change the world. And by us being a premier asset on the change, I think that gives us the opportunity to change the world as well, as a specific asset on this change, and at least change a large group of people's lives. Right now, 1,000 people hold, or 3,000 people hold, or 3,000 wallets, I don't know how many people that is, hold $1,000 or more of pTGC. Even just 100x, that's all those wallets technically around. $100,000. And I do think $100,000 to someone who put in $1,000 is partially changing their life for the good. So at minimal, we're trying to change individuals' lives. Hopefully we're making a huge impact on the world as far as creating a brand new idea that's never been done before, that taps into some of the fundamentals of basic economics and also what gives things value on this planet, and obviously cleaning them up and making them better with no middleman via, you know, the fact that we have blockchain now is just very unique. And I think that the fact that there isn't anyone really you need to trust, like there's definitely like you're trusting the individual who makes the proposal to carry out that proposal, but on chain you can see what's happening, and if you're not happy with what's happening and you have a say in the protocol with enough voting power, like you're a decent holder, you can actually adjust where the decisions of the market are going and where that money is going, and you can get with other people who are part of the community and technically, you know, shift the direction of where the project's going long term. And I think that's very, very unique in its design. I don't know of another product like
it. Yep, appreciate you speaking on it.
MakerDAO is kind of like this too, right? Like technically the person who owns the Maker tokens can make some serious decisions for that protocol, but the other Maker holders can actually vote down that person in ways or counteract what that person's trying to do, as long as they hold enough of those Maker tokens and make sure that the protocol that they also believe in is going in the direction that they foresee fit. And if they don't have enough of those tokens, they have to acquire them. They have to get them. They have to buy them, which then adds then they have conviction in the protocol, not only emotionally, but financially as well, which usually forces the hand of acting benevolently over the system, right? And also the voting process, I think, keeps people accountable. If very quickly those funds can switch in different directions, if you're not acting in the best interest, usually you just keep acting in the best interest, right? It really keeps people accountable when the community actually has a say on chain how those funds get used and where they get sent. Been going for 2 hours now. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or want to come up?
There are no questions on YouTube.
I was just going to say, if you're listening in and tuning into the spaces, you're still early. So I know the market cap is now triple digits in the millions, but that's still early for this protocol. And better later, I won't say late, than never when it comes to core positions and, you know, conviction plays in crypto.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Zen. Appreciate you, man. I'm going to go hang out with my boy and enjoy the rest of the day.
All right, guys. See ya.
See you, Zen. See you, everybody. Well, there we go. All right, guys. Hope you're all doing well. Let me see. Get my eyes on everything here. Hey, Tias Pedro. I'm glad you said something in the chat. Glad you said something. Because I needed your name for something. Guys, have a great weekend. And yeah, I'm excited. If you got new people that are coming into pTGC and UFO, send them to my presentation that I'll have tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. Pacific. Other than that, guys, cheers, David. As far as I understand, you sirs are a blessing to the community and to more. Thank you, Condor. I appreciate your kind words. Always positive, Condor. You're always positive. We appreciate that around here. All right, guys. Have a good weekend. See ya.